All right, guys, we're back and we're going to keep talking about this film. The reason why it was delayed even further, though, after the whole Evans issue, is they had a distribution deal with Paramount. And Paramount, after Evans backed out of it because he was producer of the original Chinatown, they got kind of cold feet and I guess discontinued.
I read that, yeah.
Their distribution deal with them until Nicholson, continued to rise as a star, as he did throughout his entire career, and I guess took it over, and the rest is history. This film was not celebrated as the first film was. It was not a box office success, and I'm not even entirely certain that Chinatown was necessarily a box office success per se. But it did solid numbers. It was, and it garnered a lot of awards. This movie was not nominated for any awards. The critical reception was very mixed. However, later on and I think that had a lot to do with its predecessor. I don't think it necessarily had much to do about the merits of the film itself. I think it had.
Yeah, that's the problem. And it's being viewed as a sequel,
right?
Not in its own merit.
Right. It had more to do with Chinatown being such a, more of a success that comparing the two films was apples and oranges, and it couldn't be viewed on it, on its own legs. But later on, once it was released on home media, it started gaining a following, and people were more fond of it than they were initially when it came out. Which makes sense. That's sort of
it's always the way it goes.
Yeah. There's not much you can really do about that. If everybody worried about that, movies wouldn't get made, and that sucks. I don't, that's the reason why, like a new Indiana Jones movie or something like that doesn't bother me. I mean, make as many of them as you can, because I can pick and choose which ones I want to watch or don't want to watch, opposed to them not getting made at all. I don't like when that sort of thing dictates whether a film gets made.
I think it was a good ending for his character because it kind of brought him full circle again. So I think in that respect...
Well, how do you mean full circle?
It's definitely worth making. Well, because he's been sort of like haunted by the past, trapped in the past, and the whole point of the second film is he gets to kind of correct a mistake that he thinks that he made.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And he kind of gets his closure. So after all these years, he kind of gets closure and he's like, I kept my promise kind of thing. Yeah,
I definitely see that he gets his closure. I don't know about the keeping a promise thing because I don't think he really protected. I mean, he did.
Well, he did in the end because he didn't get her in jail.
Yeah, he did. So, he did protect her in terms of like editing the tape that everybody wants. But ultimately, I think Harvey Keitel, Berman's character, he's really the protector. Honestly, he makes the ultimate sacrifice for her. It wasn't about his own mortality. It was about making sure that she's taken care of after he's gone because he's going to die anyway. So there's a lot of like, even though he comes off as like a sleazy kind of character in the beginning, he ends up being, her hero in a way.
Oh my God, that at the end when he just says, I'm going to have a cigarette. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole idea was great. And it's not quite as subtle as things that they did in the first film.
No.
Because there's a lot of like, I wouldn't say over the top, but there's a little more in your face plot points that they bring up, like the gas in the water and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That aren't nearly as subtle as the first film. And that could have been anything from the audience at the time,
Yeah, it does feel very 90s. 90s, I don't want to say 90s actions. Yeah, it's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah. And, I'd also have to go and look at what movies was it competing against at the time.
Had it been slightly more subtle, it potentially would have been viewed a little bit differently, but because I can see why people say it's a bit in your face, because
well, you know it's going to happen because they made such a big deal of the gas in the water and Jake blowing up on I mean, you knew it was going to happen. Had they made it where it was more like, oh yeah, there's gas in the water. You know what I mean? It would have been. Oh my God,
yeah, he's suddenly going to go for a cigarette. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe it suffered because of the time it was made. Had it been made when it was meant to,
those subtleties would have been there. Yeah.
Slightly different story.
Yeah. And that might have been part of that could also be as Jack Nicholson as a director as well.
Of course.
It might not necessarily be a script issue. It could have just been the direction, which again, his direction wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I thought it was competently made, but those are those minute nuances that a very well seasoned director would need to be able to see in the big picture to play it correctly and to its full effect anyway. Yeah. But so it's got its flaws, but I mean, I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and I think it's still a great sequel, and it's well worth watching. If you're a fan of Chinatown. If you're not a fan of Chinatown, as Carly is, you might not enjoy it, although she claims she enjoys it, I think, more than Chinatown, which I'm not sure that's saying much.
But then again as well, Jack Nicholson's kind of closer to the Jack Nicholson that I'm familiar with.
Sure.
Because obviously so much time's passed. Obviously I've watched him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and all that kind of stuff, The Shining. But my era of Jack Nicholson is kind of, he's edging into that.
Right.
So he's more, it sounds stupid, but he's more familiar to me in this role as Jack Nicholson. Because as I've mentioned, As Good As It Gets,
right,
one of my favourite films ever, he's a little bit closer to that in this, whereas Chinatown is very different. He's very close to his Easy Rider sort of phase. And
yeah. No, and I agree with that. And I think part of it might because he just came off, he got a lot of heat from Batman. Tim Burton's Batman came out in 1989. And I have a feeling because his acting was so celebrated in that film, that's probably the reason why he was able to get the two Jakes off the ground again. I have a feeling that was like a favorite of his, like a role that he wanted to do again. Mm-hmm. Like it mattered to him. So because he, got so much heat off of Batman, he was able to do that and get that off the ground, which I think is great. I'm glad that he did.
Ride that wave.
Yeah. It's one of those strange films that has such a large gap between the original. And the tonality has changed a bit. The audience has changed a bit. And you're trying to create, I don't want to say nostalgia, but you're trying to create a film noir film in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And that's always a tough thing. Even, in 74, when the original one came out, that's sort of a left field kind of choice. It's always been a tough genre to tackle in any time period other than, the 40s and 50s when they weren't making noir films. They were just making films that ended up being regarded as noir films later on.
Yeah, there's a thin line between replicating and nostalgia and copying. And I think that maybe that's where the unbalance is, because it did get very convoluted. The main point it got convoluted at for me was towards the end. It got very talky in the third act. Yeah,
there was a lot because there was less like physical clues like there were in Chinatown. Like Chinatown had more physical clues and connections, and this one really only had one physical clue that I recall, which is basically the paperwork for the mineral rights.
Landowner stuff.
Yeah. Which just connected Mulray and so there wasn't a whole lot. The rest of it had to come out in dialogue because there wasn't very much in way of physical clues. Which I understand that, but that definitely can bog it down. Well, I guess the one other physical clue was the chair where the gun was hidden. And that was really a pivotal turning point to have Kitty believe that he killed him on purpose. So I guess there was two major physical clues, but again, there's so much history relating to the original movie and to what's going on in the plot of this movie that, yeah, it ended up being a lot of talking and a lot of explaining my position. This is why I did this, was why I did that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that kind of made sense, but yeah, it definitely bogs it down a little bit in terms of the fun factor that we were getting before that.
Yeah. And also the main problem I had with it was that it was quite clear that Catherine was Kitty in that mm-hmm. scene where she's having like a facial and he comes in to speak to her because she looks so much like Faye Dunaway. I almost thought for a second that they'd hired Faye Dunaway to sit there.
Right.
And as soon as I saw that, I thought, they're the same fucking person.
Right.
And because her face had been hidden and that had never crossed my mind until that moment when she was sat there and she just looked the spitting image of her. And I thought, okay, here we go.
And I think that had to do with like she was getting her hair dyed as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a subtle clue because the door that he walks in says like the color of the hair, like mm-hmm. that room is for this color of hair. And I think that was like sort of the attempt of subtlety. But I agree. She looked quite a bit like her. And I really thought Meg Tilly was a good actress. She's a great pick for that role. Mm-hmm. I really thought she was fantastic. And I mean, nobody's better than Faye Dunaway in the first movie. It's just, I'm surprised she didn't win like an Academy Award for that. Yeah,
I am too.
Yeah. Even Jack Nicholson, I think, was great in that movie. Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm surprised. I think that a lot of the negative feedback, the negative reception, the lack of any awards for this film had way more to do with the predecessor than it did the merits of its own movie, because there's so much to still love about this movie, especially the acting. The acting in this is top notch. Even when it goes into campy, over the top territory, like with Madeline Stowe's character, it's still like that. Her character was so similar to most of the females portrayed in the 40s movies, the throwing the fits and trashing the place and being over the top, throwing themselves onto the chairs and stuff like that. It's like, it was so similar to the way females were portrayed in those older films. And to us now, it comes off very over the top and campy and cheesy. But I was thinking that as I was watching it this last time, going, especially after we watched,
the Blue Dahlia.
Blue Dahlia, yeah. Yeah. It just totally made me, think of that scene where she's throwing herself all over the place. It's just so funny. So there's a lot to love. Especially the acting, I just think was just really great. Harvey Keitel really shines this movie. And I don't love Harvey Keitel, but there's plenty of things that he does in his acting that he's a really great actor. And this is one of those moments in this film, like when he breaks down, they're talking in that model house and he starts crying and stuff. And it's just like, oh my God. And then Jack Nicholson's character is just hilarious. He has that same portrayal that he does with the Madeline Stowe character, where he's just like, oh, Jesus Christ. He's got to go over there and comfort him. And he's like,
here we go again.
Yeah, it's just so funny. It was just well done in my opinion. I really liked it. And it's too bad I'm not sure. I got mixed information out there about this being a trilogy. I know you saw that out there too as well, right?
Yeah. And then the trilogy, like the third one, got scrapped because this didn't really do so well. So
yeah, and so I read two different things. So I read about Nicholson talking about it, saying that it was always planned as a trilogy. All three films would be later stages of Giddy's life. And all three films would tackle a major natural resource. So the first one's water, second one was supposed to be oil, and the third one was going to be land. And then there are interviews with Town saying he has no idea what that's all about. And he said there was never a trilogy planned. There were never three movies. The sequel wasn't planned. It was, something that he wrote later on after the success of the first film, and has no idea. And so I don't know. You never know, because sometimes people get into a room and they start discussing ideas, and maybe somebody mentioned potentially three movies and this ideas or whatever. And it just could have been a passing conversation from Town, and Nicholson liked it so much that he latched onto it and just got that into his head. I don't really know. I'm not sure what the deal with that is. It would have been amazing to see, and it's supposedly he also gave it a name. Nicholson called it Giddies versus Giddies, which is interesting because that's also very similar to the two Jakes, right? And this one, it was going to be set in 1968, and it was going to deal with his divorce, and something to do with land is all I know. But yeah, again, because of the failure of the two Jakes commercially, supposedly it was scrapped. So maybe that could have just been Nicholson's fancy, ideas of a sequel, and Robert Town really didn't have anything to do with that. Who knows? I really don't know, but, you never can tell, because especially with the two Jakes, his fiance, who I don't even think we ever really
it was like her indoors. We never saw her.
Right. She just leaves him. Well,
he does spend a lot of time hiding under his desk. So
well, yeah, but I mean, it seemed a bit harsh. I always have a problem with those kind of portrayals, because it's like, what you're getting into. This is what he does for a living. That he, you know what I mean? It's like,
his pattern of behavior.
You gotta, you have to.
He's going to stay late at work.
Right. You have to accept that, or just don't do it. You can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It just doesn't make any sense. But that seems to be a common theme in a lot of movies like this, which I guess is just, some drama. But I would like to see where that isn't the thing that happens. I want to see the woman that, or the man, whoever, that sticks around, and they know what they're getting into, and they just kind of deal with it, which has been done before. It's not unheard of, but it's far less common than what we're seeing here, where it's just like, you're at work all the time later. And it's just kind of, okay, well, that's expected. But I don't know, maybe that, I guess they were just going to take that further in the third movie. I'm assuming maybe he would get his fiance back, they would get married, and then get divorced. And then the movie would be about why. What was the case that got them divorced, I would assume. Who knows? Who knows? But, all right. Carly, I think we're at that time.
Oh, it's exciting.
I love Chinatown. I think it's a fantastic film. I think it's a perfect movie. I don't see any major flaws in that film at all. I enjoy it quite a bit. I enjoyed it quite a bit before I was into noir films, and I enjoyed the two Jakes before I was into the noir films. I gravitated towards them, I guess. And the two Jakes, even with all of its flaws that it might have, and even with the overshadowing of its predecessor, I still think it's a fun film, if not tonally imbalanced. Not as well directed as Chinatown, but it's still fantastic. That's the weird thing about this movie, is that you see the flaws in the direction opposed to Polanski, but then you see these amazing performances. And I mean, the director has got a lot to do with that. And I think Nicholson surrounded himself with a great cast that really turned out for him. And because of that, more than anything else, because the story itself isn't as I guess, interesting as Chinatown to me.
Okay. Yeah.
It was fine, but I didn't find it as interesting. It was like mineral rights. Okay.
It wasn't as engaging.
Yeah. I cared more about what does Mulray have to do with it? Let's get back to that. But it has such a small piece in this film that it wasn't sufficiently satisfactory to me, in terms of that. So because of those two things, I'm going to give this one a little bit of a lower rating. I'm going to rate it about a 7. But I still personally really enjoy it. And I would watch this movie over and over again, just like I would the first movie. I really like it. I think it's great. And I hope that this Fincher and Town prequel comes out. I just hope it does. I hope that it would be amazing if they find a way to work Jack Nicholson in there.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I highly doubt that'll ever happen. I feel like the dude's retired. Like I haven't seen him in anything in a long time. But it would be amazing if they could figure out something like that. But I just really hope that it happens. I just want to see it happen. I want more of it. I would love to see how he got started. And that's the whole point of prequel, seeing how he got started being a PI and all that kind of stuff and seeing where it goes from there. It would just be fun. It would just be interesting to follow that character some more. Because he's a great character. He's a great PI character. I think I'd put him up there with the same love and respect.
You're like a Jack junkie.
No, not really. Because actually, I'm not a huge fan of Jack Nicholson. Like I like some of his, like I like basically his major hits. I like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I like The Shining. I like Chinatown, and that's pretty much it. There's not the rest of it I could do without. There actually was a later movie they did called The Pledge that I really like. I thought he was fantastic in, which is also a kind of neo-noir. But I just hope that happens. I hope it just doesn't fall to the wayside. It'll just be fun to be able to see more of this character. So there you go. That's 7 from me. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I'm also going to give it a 7.
Well, I knock your 7 down to maybe a 6 or a 5 because I really think you wanted to rate Chinatown as a 4.
I'm sorry, Charles Xavier. Are you in my head?
I think so.
No, I'd give this a 7. Solid 7.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you would never watch it again.
I think if it was on TV,
yeah,
I'd zone into it. I'd never actively seek it out again.
Yeah.
But I did quite enjoy watching it.
Okay.
I enjoyed not the comedy aspects, of we said it's not comedy,
right,
but I enjoyed the more sort of happy-go-lucky bits of it, and I like seeing the character aged. I quite like that personally. I like seeing him, seeing his growth.
I agree.
And seeing them little snippets of what he used to be like, but also the slightly different edge that he has now. Like Harvey Keitel, I did find it a bit clunky towards the end, I'm not going to lie. That was a bit hard going for about 10, 15 minutes. But the ending, I thought, again, was great. So, yeah, all in all, a 7.
All right. Well, good stuff. I like that. I like that you see some merit in there. All right. Well, cool. So we got a 7 and we got a 7. Nice. So I personally would urge all of you guys, if you have not seen Chinatown, I would urge you to go out there and check it out and make it a double feature. Watch the 2 Jakes afterwards. It's not necessary. But I think the 2 Jakes does add to the character, as a sequel. I think that would be the main focus and the biggest takeaway. As Carly said, it's nice to see him older, wiser, different, learned from his experience and seeing how it's played out with, the flashbacks and all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily because it's a sequel to Chinatown and a continuation of the story, because it's a loose sequel, in my opinion. That's vaguely connected and doesn't have to be. But go check it out. I think they're both great movies. Even though it's not Carly's thing, that's okay. She sat through it.
I did twice.
Twice. Well, yeah, that's good. It makes me happy.
I had a Chinatown sandwich. Chinatown to Jake's Chinatown.
There you go. All right. How's it feel, Carly? This is the end of the season. This is the last episode. We went out with a whimper because
I
two
know.
movies
I think
you didn't
we should
care
have
about.
made it more fun. We should have made it more fun. We should have had like a Zoom party or something.
Oh,
Bloody
yeah.
hell.
Well, we're gonna have to. Maybe we'll. I wonder what's gonna come with the next season. Maybe we should open it up, or maybe have a bonus episode where we don't talk about a film per se, but we just do our drink lineup like we talked about.
We did mention that before.
Yeah, maybe we should do that in between seasons and see how that goes, and then, yeah, I don't know.
We should have an end of the show.
End of the show. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's like the end of the show, and then we show each other our beers or something. I don't know.
Show each other our beers.
Yeah, all of the concoctions throughout the series.
Okay. That could be fun.
Or not.
I don't know.
Could be messy.
Yeah, it'll be fun to sort of plan out next season and put together a new list of films to watch and see where we can take things, make it bigger and better. And I know Ian's got some artwork that we're going to be able to utilize and sort of rebrand a little bit. So that'll be fun. But I guess people have, 20 something episodes that they can delve into and hopefully check out some films they've either never heard of or been meaning to check out and never have. And hopefully we can do that again next season for them.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, guys. I guess until next season, we will see you. We'll see you in a couple months. All right. Take care. Have fun.
Bye-bye.
Is looking at you, kid.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Speakeasy Noircast. Make sure to visit our website, resurrectionfilms.net, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, The Dark Side of Acting Up, available now on Amazon, or you can check out one of our films available on Amazon Prime.